Index fund, ETF, mutual fund, hedge fund. If you've ever opened an investment app, you've seen all four of these words, and you probably picked one of them without fully knowing what it was. Don't worry, neither did the guy who sold it to you. In the next few minutes, I'll break down what each one is, how they work, and which one you should actually own. And at the end, I'll show you the one type of fund that roughly 90% of everyday investors should own, and why the wealthiest people on earth, with every advantage money can buy, still can't beat it. Let's start from the beginning. Before we get into the four types, let's cover what a fund even is. Once you get this, everything else falls into place. A fund is a pool of money. You put money in, other people put money in. That combined pool buys a bunch of different investments, stocks, bonds, sometimes other things too. Here's why that matters. If Bobby puts his $100 into one company's stock and that company crashes, well, his money is gone. That's the whole movie. But if that same $100 goes into a fund holding 500 different companies and his money is spread across all of them, if one crashes, Bobby barely feels it. That is called diversification, and it's the entire reason funds exist. Every fund you'll hear about follows this same idea, a pool of money spread across many investments. What makes the four types of funds different is how each fund picks what to buy, how you trade it, and what it costs. Let's start with the one you've heard about the most, index funds. An index fund is the simplest type of fund that exists. It doesn't try to pick winners, it doesn't try to beat the market, it just copies a list. And that list is called an index. The most famous one is the S&P 500, the 500 largest companies in the United States. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. When you buy an S&P 500 index fund, your money gets spread across all 500 automatically. If a new company joins the list, the fund buys it. If one drops off, the fund sells it. Basically, an index fund is what happens when you fire the manager but keep the portfolio. Turns out nobody misses him. Or her. Because there's no expensive manager picking stocks, index funds are absurdly cheap. The annual fee, called the expense ratio, is often as low as 0.03%. For every $1,000 invested, that's about 30 cents a year. You spend more than that walking past a vending machine. Index funds are easy to understand. If you believe the U.S. economy will keep growing, you buy an S&P 500 index fund. If you think tech will lead, you buy a NASDAQ 100 index fund. You're not betting on individual companies, you're betting on a whole slice of the economy. This is why even Warren Buffett, one of the greatest stock pickers in history, has said most regular investors should just buy an index fund and leave it alone. Coming from the most famous stock picker alive, that's a strange recommendation. And there's a specific reason he says it, a reason that cost Wall Street a lot of money to learn the hard way. We'll get there later on. One quick thing before we continue. Remember that an index fund is just a strategy. The way you actually buy one is through the next two types of funds. So when somebody says they bought an index fund, they really bought one inside one of these packages. First up, mutual funds. Mutual funds are the oldest and most classic type of fund, nearly 100 years old, and still the most common fund sitting inside retirement accounts and 401k plans today. Here's how they work. You give your money to a fund company, Vanguard, Fidelity, JP Morgan, and they pool it with thousands of other investors. That pool gets used to buy stocks, bonds, or other investments based on the fund strategy. Mutual funds come in two flavors. Actively managed, where a fund manager and their team spend every day analyzing companies, trying to pick winners, trying to beat the market. Or passively managed, which is just an index fund packaged inside a mutual fund. A famous example is Vanguard's FVIAX, which simply tracks the S&P 500. Now here's where mutual funds get weird. You can't buy or sell one at whatever price it happens to be at right now. If you place a buy order at 11 in the morning, your order just waits. Once the market closes at 4 p.m., the fund calculates one single price for the day, called the NAV, and everyone who traded that day gets that exact same price. Mutual funds also have minimum investment requirements. Vanguard's VFIAX requires $3,000 just to get started. Some actively managed ones need even more. That's why mutual funds have historically been seen as less beginner-friendly. You need a chunk of money just to get through the door. And the fees. An index mutual fund is relatively cheap, about 0.04% a year. An actively managed fund typically charges between 0.5 and 1.5%. Now that might sound small, but over 30 or 40 years, paying 1.5% every single year takes a bite out of your return so big, it'll make your stomach drop. And we'll see exactly how big at the end. So mutual funds are classic, trade once a day, often have minimums, and come in either flavor. But there's a newer type that fixed most of those friction points we've discussed, and it's been eating the mutual fund industry's lunch for the past 20 years. ETFs. ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. The name tells you what makes it different. It trades on a stock exchange just like a regular stock. Think of an ETF as a mutual fund that got a huge upgrade. It still holds a pool of many investments, it still gives you diversification, but the way you buy and sell it is completely different. When the market is open, an ETF's price updates in real time. You can buy or sell in seconds using any trading app. No waiting for 4 p.m., no mystery NAV. ETFs also solve the minimum investment problem. No $3,000 entry requirement, you just buy however many shares you want. And with most modern brokers, you can even buy a fraction of a share for a few dollars. Like mutual funds, ETFs come in both flavors. Most follow an index, but some are actively managed. When people talk about ETFs, they're almost always talking about the index-following ETFs because that's where the overwhelming majority of the money sits. Famous examples include Vanguard's VOO, which tracks the S&P 500, and Invesco's QQQ, which tracks the NASDAQ 100. ETFs have one more advantage that almost nobody talks about. Because of the way ETF shares are created and redeemed behind the scenes, they generate far fewer taxable events than mutual funds. If you're investing outside a retirement account, that tax efficiency saves you real money every year. So ETFs trade like stocks. No minimums, usually cheaper than mutual funds, more tax efficient. You can see why they took over. But there's still one more type of fund we haven't touched yet. The one with the biggest reputation. The one surrounded by mystery and velvet ropes. Hedge funds. Let me start by telling you how this chapter ends. In 2007, Warren Buffett publicly challenged the hedge fund industry to a bet. He said that over the next 10 years, a simple S&P 500 index fund would beat 5 hand-picked hedge funds chosen by a top Wall Street firm. A manager at Protégé Partners accepted. $1 million on the line, 10 years, 2008 to 2017. Buffett's boring index fund delivered a 7.1% annual return. The 5 hedge funds averaged 2.2%. Buffett didn't just beat them, he embarrassed them with a fund any 18-year-old can buy on their phone during lunch. And Buffett's bet isn't a fluke. Every year, S&P Global publishes a report called SPIVA, S-P-I-V-A, that tracks how actively managed funds perform against index funds. Over the last 15 years, nearly 90% of active U.S. large-cap funds have failed to beat the S&P 500. Stretch that to 20 years and the number climbs to 92%. Wall Street has a polite term for this. Most investors use less polite ones. So if hedge funds lose to a fund you can buy on your phone, what are you paying for? That's where it gets interesting. First, hedge funds are private. You can't just open your phone and buy in. In the US, you have to be what's called an accredited investor. That means earning at least $200,000 a year as an individual or $300,000 as a couple for 2 years running, or having a net worth over $1 million, not counting your primary home. On top of that, hedge fund minimums typically start at $100,000 and can run into the millions. So essentially, the hedge fund pitch is simple. Pay us more, we'll do worse, bring your friends. Second, hedge funds charge enormously more than any other fund. The industry standard is called 2 and 20. 2% every year on your entire investment plus 20% of any profits. Compared to an index fund's 0.03%, that's roughly 50 to 100 times higher. Third, hedge funds take much bigger risks. They use leverage, borrowing money to invest more than they have. They short stocks, betting prices will fall. They trade complex instruments most people have never even heard of. The whole pitch is that these aggressive strategies should deliver higher returns to justify their fees. You're paying 50 times more, so a professional can lose to a spreadsheet, and yet somehow, people keep signing up. So hedge funds are exclusive, expensive, aggressive, and for most investors, a worse deal than the fund you can buy in your pajamas on a Tuesday night. Which brings us to the real question. Out of all 4 of these funds, which one should you actually own? And why does Warren Buffett, who made his entire fortune picking stocks, tell everyone not to? Before I give you the answer, you may have already noticed something odd. Index funds got compared to mutual funds, but then I said index funds live inside mutual funds and also inside ETFs. So are index funds a separate thing or not? Here's the real picture, and once you see it, every fund ever invented will make sense to you. Every real fund is a combination of 2 things, a strategy and a structure. Index and active are strategies, how the fund picks investments. Mutual funds and ETFs are structures, how the fund is packaged and how you trade it. Hedge funds sit in their own box because most people can't even access them. Let me show you with 3 real funds. VFIAX is an index strategy wrapped inside a mutual fund. VOO is the same index strategy wrapped inside an ETF. ARKK, the famous Cathie Wood fund, is an active strategy wrapped inside an ETF. Every single fund you'll ever buy slots into one of these boxes. Now, the answer. For roughly 90% of everyday investors, the best choice is an index fund packaged as an ETF. Something like VOO, which tracks the S&P 500, or VTI, which tracks the entire U.S. stock market. Why that specific combination? Because it wins on every axis. The index strategy beats active management over the long run, as SPIVA and the Buffett bet both showed. The ETF structure wins on accessibility. There's no minimum. It also wins on fees, sitting around 0.03%. Further, it wins on taxes outside a retirement account. One quick exception, though, if you invest through a workplace 401k, you usually can't buy ETFs. Pick an index mutual fund instead. Same strategy, different wrapper, same outcome. Compound that edge over 30 or 40 years, and the difference is enormous. $300,000, sometimes more. Money that either compounds in your retirement or gets eaten by fees you never saw leave your account. The industry calls this asset management. Your wallet calls it something less flattering, which is why Buffett tells people to buy the boring fund. The best stock picker alive is basically telling you, don't try to do what I do. You will lose. One last thing. Everything I just told you assumes you're investing long-term. These funds are not a get-rich-quick tool. The U.S. stock market has dropped 30, 40, even 50% in past crashes. If you panic and sell during one, no strategy on earth will save you. The investors who win with index investing are the ones who keep buying through every crash and let decades of compounding do the work. So if you take one thing from this video, take this. You don't need to beat the market. You don't need to be a genius stock picker. You don't need a private hedge fund. You just need a boring, low-cost index ETF and the patience to leave it alone. If you want to know why America can print trillions and never collapse, click this video. The answer is a deal from 1974 that was hidden for 41 years. We'll see you there.